Welcome back to Quantreef.com. Bitcoin sitting right around 63,524, parked in a tight little pocket between last swing high and swing low, and that's exactly why this zone matters. Today we'll walk through liquidity, support and resistance, VWAP, Fibonacci, fair value gaps, positioning, and what the next several hours probably look like. Price is at 63,524. And honestly this reads neutral to slightly constructive rather than a clean trend. The trend and structure layer scores 65.8, decent but not dominant, and price is boxed between a 1-hour swing high near 63,770 and structural 4-hour support around 63,147. Neither side has really broken free yet, so control is contested, not owned. Price at 63,524 is basically glued to session VWAP at 63,530, which tells you this is balanced trade, not a directional session. The anchored VWAP from the swing high sits at 63,324, and the one from the swing low is at 63,455, both just below current price. That's a decent sign for buyers holding value, but it's thin margin, so a rejection here would tip things back into the range. The bigger pool sits below, down at 62,188, holding 56% of the visible liquidity and worth close to $2.9 billion in notional, roughly 2% away. Above, there's a wall at 64,292 carrying 44% and about $2.3 billion, just over 1% away. Markets tend to drift toward the fatter pool first because that's where stops cluster and market makers can fill size, so the downside magnet is slightly heavier right now, though upside isn't ignorable either. On screen, resistance sits first at the 1-hour swing high, 63,770, then the stop-loss cluster at 64,164.5. Below, it's target 1 at 62,804.4, target 2 at 61,777.6, and target 3 at 60,824.7. Given the stop hunt risk is flagged high, I'd expect the swing high to get tested first for stops, and a clean break above 64,164 would invalidate the range-bound read. Above price, there's an unfilled 4-hour bearish gap between 64,012 and 64,172, already about 42% filled, and it's got a 93% revisit rate historically, so that's a real magnet. Higher up there's another bear gap near 64,500 to 64,669, untouched. Below, there's a bull gap from 62,863 to 63,664, about a third filled already, sitting right under current price and acting like a cushion. Working off the 4-hour swing from 62,266.6 up to 63,770, price is sitting inside the range near the 0.382 retracement at 63,195, less than 1% away. That level's acting like the pivot right now. If it breaks down, 0.5 at 63,18 and 0.618 near 62,841 come into play. On the upside, the 1.272 extension at 64,179 lines up nicely with that resistance cluster we already flagged. Volume and liquidity scores strongest here at 79.7, saying real participation is showing up. Behavioral sits at 67.2, trend at 65.8, both leaning constructive. But statistical volatility is weak at 37.3, and macro regime is flat at 50, which drags the composite back toward neutral. When volume looks healthy but volatility and macro don't confirm, that's usually a market building energy rather than committing to a direction yet. Retail's 59.94% long, and top accounts are actually a touch more long at 61.4%, with top position size at 60.06% long, so there's no real divergence between retail and smart money here, both leaning the same way. But the 4-hour taker flow tells a different story, 47% long versus 53% short, with 2.14 billion in long volume against 2.41 billion short. That imbalance suggests a short squeeze is the more likely surprise if price pushes up through resistance. Given the heavier resting liquidity sits below at 62,188, and taker flow is leaning short into a market where longs still dominate the account data, there's a reasonable case price probes down first, sweeping through the 62,800's target zone before any real bounce. If sellers succeed down there, expect a flush towards 61,777 next. But if buyers defend that 4-hour support and reclaim the 63,770 swing high, the fair value gap up near 64,000 becomes the logical draw, and a squeeze through short positioning could accelerate that move. Both paths are live, this is a decision zone. The bearish case wants confirmation on a breakdown through the 63,147 support with acceptance below, targeting 62.80 for then 61,777, invalidated back above 64,164. The bullish case looks for a reclaim of 63,770 with follow-through towards 64,292, with targets stacked at 63,556, 63,678, and 64,292, invalidated below 61,081. Both sides are structured around confirmation, not prediction. So Bitcoin sits right on the fence, and whichever side takes its liquidity pool first likely writes the next real chapter here. If this kind of breakdown helps, drop a like and subscribe, and know that Quantreef.com runs this exact 9-layer structure, probability and liquidity framework across well over 100 coins, with a 7-day trial if you want to dig deeper. As always, this is for educational purposes only and isn't financial advice.